Okay. To start off with, then, my name's Silver. I've been around for far, far, far too long, and I generally tend to use the pronoun of he and him. But I'm not really particularly fussed about what people want to refer to me as. And I am one of the directors of Scotiacon, and I help out at various other events across Europe, including Furry Week in Holland, Eurofurence, and some other events that are no longer running. But I've been about a bit, shall we say.
So, what got you started in the fandom in the first place?
Oh, it's a bit of a slippery slope, really. In sort of like the 90s and into the 2000s, the internet wasn't as directly communicative as it is now. It was more reliant on graphical chats, emails, message boards, bulletin boards, that kind of thing. And even sort of like the dial up systems and the posts weren't really as fast as we would expect now. So, kind of just sort of found a few websites, with some art that was interesting, um, engaged with a few people, started buying a bit of art here and there, and then just sort of got gradually more and more involved in things. Started going to see people, trips abroad, and then it all sort of just snowballed. I would say, one moment I'm volunteering, and the next minute it's sort of like you're running something. It's a bit of a leap, shall we say? Do you know the old saying, "It's a trap"? It's not
Yeah.
really. But like a lot of people, they want to be busy and they want to feel occupied and useful and productive in what they're doing. So a lot of people tend to find that where they might not necessarily be as socially outgoing, when they've come along to events, they tend to get more involved and sort of relax a bit. So they get more confidence, they actually develop more, and we've seen it. And I would say it's one of the big reasons why it's so enjoyable to run events is you can see people developing, growing into a new role, taking over a new role, and actually just enjoying themselves.
And then with Scotiacon itself, so not only have I attended it, but I've had the joy of being involved in the team over the few years in like con ops and registration and helping out with running events like Dance Comp, for example. What started Scotiacon?
An idea. Um, Originally, it was in about 2009, I think it first was sort of being bandied about. And the idea was to provide something in Scotland more accessible to the local attendees, because obviously it's quite difficult to get from Inverness down to, say, Manchester, London, any of the other events that were running at the time. Um, Unfortunately, it didn't run that year. They were looking at doing it in 2010, but it proved to be too difficult to get everything organized and running on that year. So instead, we pushed back to 2011, which is when the first one ran in Inverness. And after that, it's grown and grown. And we moved from Inverness down to Livingston, just for more space. And unfortunately, the original hotel, they converted one of the big rooms into bedrooms, condemned the ballroom, and I was left with a single tiny room, about sort of 10 square meters. And I think we had a conservatory, and that was it. Can't run a convention with like two rooms. So it just was so impractical. Um, Inverness itself, it's a beautiful city. It's absolutely gorgeous coming over the hills you crest over, come down, and you see these sort of twinkling lights just start to open up in front of you. And the castle's magnificent. The walk around is just, it's a lovely area to be. It's just sadly the hotel just wasn't practical. So the move south to Livingston happened. We were there for a few years at least, and that was again the same thing as we built up a steady base of attendees, got more people, more space, and then eventually hit the same problem of lacking capacity. So we've ended up going to Glasgow, to the SECC complex, which has the Crown Plaza on it and has a lot more space. And I don't want to fill that up because if I have to move somewhere else, it's going to be building our own hotel probably.
it was announced at Scotiacon 25 about Scotiacon 26 that there was a second hotel being officially taken over, my mind just exploded.
It's
That,
it's when you step back and look and go, you started out with like 49 people in Inverness, and you're talking now into the multi-thousand, and it's been sort of like it's an unexpected journey. It's unexpected sort of dealings with hotels and other suppliers, and it's when you start to realize that you're now a fairly significant force in a business world, because you can buy things, you can make things happen. When we first started out, it's sort of like you're looking at a budget of, can I afford to buy a big packet of pens, or should I just buy the small one because it's cheaper? And now you're sort of looking at it going, I can spend anything that I need to make the event work. And it's one of those things that you don't realize it's happening, and then it is happening. And you're sort of like going, oh, I mean, this year was again, you've got to think that it was over 2,000 people. I never would have said years ago that that would be something that would be happening, but it's sustainable. The event's running very well. Confuzzled obviously is also running very well, and it's been sustainable for a number of years. So we're sort of starting to get to a point where events are managing to sustain themselves. They're getting more people inspired into it, because that is one of the biggest challenges of all events, is finding enough people to run all of the things that are going on. And getting new people in is especially hard sometimes, because I don't know what's happened, but we're getting a lot of people who are working at a lot of events. They're always working. They never seem to take time off, which is not good for you. You should take some time off now and again. So it's always good to, get more people on board and recruit more into it. Fantastic to see new people coming in. The more you expand your staff and crew, the more you find you need more of them, because more people have turned up, and it outstrips your recruitment. You also find that you have people who will drift to other things, commitments, university, other changes in life that mean they can't come along. And you have to replace people's positions with new ones, and then still expand. So you're sort of doubling up all the time. And the recruitment is notoriously difficult. And it's strange, because sometimes some of the smaller conventions have always been able to, put multiple hats on at the same time. I think one of the years I had at Scotiacon, I had about, must have been about 6 different jobs that I was supposed to be doing, because there were so few of us to start off with. But gradually, people have come in, taken on more things, and it's very strange to be able to sort of go to an event now and actually not have to be working all of the time, and not have to be changing hat all the time to a different job. And sort of slowing down and letting go is very difficult for people. I find myself to just not be able to sit still for very long. So I do try. Usually it's a case of, if I'm sort of moving quickly, I'm going to deal with something. But if I'm sort of walking around trying to be social, that's the time just to come over, have a chat. Makes it all worth it, especially when people tell me about, what they've enjoyed, what they've done, the fact that they've brought new person to the event, or they brought partner to the event who wouldn't have come. And it's nice when people have a good experience.
On the social aspect of it, do you ever get the other side of the coin where people, maybe given your title, especially with ScotiaCon, would be anxious to like approach you or be nervous about it, or when they realize that, like, you go from like, oh, this guy at the bar having a pint, to, oh, that's the director. Does that moment ever kind of show with people?
Um, I don't think it's necessary sometimes to have as much of a distinction between people. Generally, I find that you're going along to enjoy yourself. You're going along to help other people. I'm just a facilitator. I'm only there to really, sign the numbers off and run things around and make sure things are going. So I wouldn't consider myself ever to be unapproachable, because that's part of my job, is to include people, to try and reach out to them and get people involved and chatting. And sometimes it can be very, very nice where somebody doesn't recognize you, because they're just natural. There's no sort of prepositions. There's no sort of worries about saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. You can just talk to people, which is lovely.
And on that note, what would be your advice for someone who is starting off in the con space as a member of the team for an event?
Um, well, before you get to being a member of a team, I would say, just as an attendee, the first thing to do is try and relax. Um, a lot of people that come along to their first event are a bit overwhelmed by everything, because there's this artist who I follow for years, and oh, there's this person, there's this, there's a, and it's like overstimulation, and people have been caused anxiety problems from simply overloading themselves, trying to do every single event, every single thing they want to go along. I've got to do this, I've got to do this. Where they forget to eat, they forget to sleep, they don't enjoy themselves because they're too busy trying to enjoy themselves. They think, yeah, you've got to step back sometimes and just slow down. So for a con book, get your con book, have a look through it, look at the schedule. Are there things you particularly want to do? Circle them. If there's something you definitely 100% want to do, focus on that and then work around that. See what happens. Understand that plans might change. The looseness of let's go hang out for dinner or something will fluctuate because people's plans change, times change, everything goes sometimes a little bit con time where they run a bit late. So you've got to adjust your thought process to just chill. And when you get to working at events, you get to see a bit of the organizational side of things, a bit of the logistics side, a bit of, sort of, does something go wrong that we need to sort? Like, I don't know, there's no marker pens and we need to go and buy some, or we need to do this and that. You start to understand how things work, why they work the way they do. And occasionally, you have to say no to someone, which is always difficult. We don't like doing that, but sometimes you do have to be the one that says no. I hate to use the term big bad wolf, but sometimes you have to. But generally speaking, as long as you understand what you're trying to do, where you're trying to do it, and ask for help, because there's a lot of people who've been doing it in different events, like science fiction events, writing events, other conventions, other fandoms. You can talk to people and just ask and learn how things are going. Most people are very happy to explain why they do things a certain way, how things are done. And occasionally something could be as simple as it's in the contract, so we have to do it this way.
So, a part of Scotiacon, or a part of most conventions, the big things are the ceremonies. And I've seen you on stage for the opening ceremony and the closing ceremonies, both in person and looking back online over the years. Does the nerves of ever getting on stage hit you? Like when you see, when you arrive on site, you see all the people coming in, and up to that point in time, really, they've kind of only been numbers on a screen. And then you see them in the Argyle and go, oh my gosh, look at all these weirdos that have come to see us for the week.
Honestly, no, I don't think I've ever been intimidated by seeing people on stage and doing things. It's almost like a performance characterization thing. So you come along, you do the show, and you make enjoyment, entertainment, and that sort of thing. So you don't really have much of a focus on them. Also, because there's very bright lights, you tend to lose anything past about like a few rows. You don't see, it's just shadow. um, so that can be interesting to remember, that you can't see people. Hence why we always say, be loud, be shouty, give us a sign, because we won't see you otherwise. And because we're bright, you're dimly lit at the back. That's just how things go through. But I wouldn't say I've ever had a fear of it. What I would say about the numbers is, I remember we were doing a staff briefing one year, and I was on the stage. We were just sort of chatting away to people, and I looked and I just stopped and thought, hang on a minute, there's more people sitting in this room than we had originally attendees. And you're sort of going, oh, that's that's a bit of a strange feeling. That's more of an impactful thing, I would say, than looking at large numbers of people on a stage. It was genuinely the fact that there were more people, working for the convention than there were actually originally attending. So that was the moment I would say that's more surprising.
On reflection of the Scotiacon journey so far, if you could go back to the very beginning and give advice to past Silver of that time, with all the knowledge you have about the growth of the con and having to change venues because of it, and just the sheer change that's been over whatever 15 years later, what would you say to past Silver?
Um, don't forget your laptop because you should have brought it with you. It's on the uh, front room in front of the couch. Don't forget that because you'll need that. It'll cause you a lot of problems not to. Um, what would I say next? Uh, I would say love Valerie, because she's one of the most fantastic people you'll ever have as a hotel liaison. So she was at Livingston, and Valerie was my uh, opposite number, shall we say, and looked after me amazingly, along with the other night staff that were there. And she one day in welfare decided that I'd had too much coffee. And I was like, "You can't cut my coffee off. This is how I'm coping with everything. I need coffee." And they were like, "No, no, no, you've had too much. You've got heart palpitations." And so I went to see Valerie, and she came out with a pot of coffee. So I was walking around with a pot instead and a cup, and I go, "There we go, coffee, coffee, coffee." And they were like, "How did you get that?" It's like, it's who you know, not what you know. And that made such a difference to the day. Um, but other than that, I would say most of the advice that you learn is from experience, and getting the development to be there is the hardest thing to do because you can't explain a lot of it. You can't explain how a meeting will work with like business director, business development manager, general manager. It's not an environment that a lot of people are familiar with and comfortable with. So you've got to learn how to do it. And that I think is the thing to do. So you might not always get it right, but don't worry about it.
On the same note as you were sharing there with Valerie and your memory of that, do you have any top memories from over the years of Scotiacon? I know it's kind of hard to compress everything into one very short segment, but if you had like maybe a top two memories of Scotiacon over the years, what would they be and why?
Oh, the first one's going to be a bit of a strange one, but it's quite important. Um, the day before I was supposed to drive up um, to see Kyle Fox and go for the van and drive up from there, I managed to get myself into hospital. And I was kept in overnight. I was having extremely low blood pressure and various complications. So I was released out of hospital at 7 o'clock in the morning. I then went home, had about 2 hours of sleep, I think, and then drove up to Birmingham. And then there was a problem with the van, so it's running late. We drove up, and I remember we got sort of north and north and north, and you're getting further because you run out of motorway, then you run out of petrol stations that are open, then you run out of civilization itself. There's like nothing around as you're driving along these roads. And I just remember going, it's like I think I saw a sign that said like Inverness 100 miles, and it's already gone midnight. So we carried on, and we got up to Inverness, and it was beautiful the way it sort of opened up as these twinkling lights as you crested over the hill. Come down, got in, and it must have been, I don't know what time in the morning. You're talking easily 2 o'clock in the morning. And the guy that was behind there's on tap, tap, tap on the thing. And it's like, "Oh, you've been listed as no shows." Because we'd arrived after midnight on the day we were supposed to be checking in, the booking had been cancelled automatically by the system. You've got to understand, I'm very tired. I'm sort of drained from driving. And it's like, and this Scottish guy came from behind and he looked over this on shoulder, looked at the screen and just went, I'll just check them in manually, let day shift sort it out. And I was like, I like you. You have solved my problem. Went to bed. About 45 minutes later, I got up because I couldn't sleep. Just too focused. And then he came out the same guy and was like, do you want some breakfast? It's like, I can't do much because your kitchen's still closed, but do some toast and jam. It's like, I like you. You're bringing me coffee as well. This is even better. And, that was one of those things that you can't forget because it was amazing. And if I had to pick a second one, I think it would be I had an attendee come along, um, and they came along with their carer. Um, for several years, their mother was the carer, and each year I saw her, had a chat, said, "How are you? What's going on?" Went through everything. And one year I didn't see her, and I was a bit concerned because I was like, well, I've seen her for years, and I haven't seen the mother. And eventually got contact, and it turned out that her child had had a lot of difficulties with socialization, anxiety, and everything else. And she said that because of coming to the convention, they'd been able to develop friends. They've been able to sort of like manage themselves, go to college, um, fill themselves out as an individual, and have the confidence to speak and do other things. And effectively no longer needed a carer to come along. And I was sort of thinking, going, that's just, it's so nice. I never would have expected to have been part of changing someone's life like that, but it was there and we did it. And they're still able to come along to the event and uh, fulfill their dream of being social.
That's just so wonderful. That is just incredible.
The small things can have a big impact, and you don't necessarily know that unless you get told about it. It's always surprising sometimes just how much of a difference things can make. And when one year I think I was speaking to the charity after the event, and I was saying to them, okay, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. Here's the total amount raised because it was after you've added everything up and counted all the coins and done everything and taken in the straggling payments and things. And I sent the money off to them. And they said, "This is unbelievable. It literally pays for a boat for a year for us. We have no way of doing this regularly. So you can make a real difference to the different charitable organizations. And because a lot of conventions tend to focus on smaller charities, if you support big national ones, they tend to be a little bit of you're a number on a balance sheet. Um, but the smaller charities are far more personal in their involvement. They speak more from the heart and they understand their aims. And they're very much a case that they appreciate it so much more. And they're completely stunned usually by people going, yeah, here's X thousand pounds. And they sort of go, oh, didn't expect that. It's like, yes, I know it's not the best thing, but sometimes it's like you make the charity cry and you're like, but at the same time, it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But it's nice to, just see their reactions.
And I suppose that's the side of it as well. Many people like wouldn't see, especially our friends in the media, shall we say, wouldn't typically look at it from that angle. So it's always nice when we get to highlight stuff like that, especially when it's about local or smaller based charities. Now, on that note, I know at Scotiacon there is Don. Don goes around, he collects the money and the coins and stuff. You typically get like the regular ones like euro, $1, and pound, and so on and so forth. What has been the nichest currency that you've collected from the Scotiacon collection?
Looking at the most unusual coins that we've had euros, we've had dollars, we've had Canadian dollars, I've had Albanian lek, Polish zloty, Czech koruna, uh, I've had a Mexican peso, a Falkland Islands 20 pence, some Icelandic krona, some Danish krona, and I think probably the strangest, the most obscure one was the Venezuelan Bolivia. It's one of those things that you sort of sit there and go, I don't even know what this is. So I had to Google and found it out eventually. I can't bank that with the normal bank because they just won't take those coins. So what I tend to do is take all of the money that it is, add it up in pounds, and then I put that in myself as an extra donation. So it covers the cost of it. And then we take all of the foreign currencies that we can't pay in or convert up to the airport for international donations because they obviously can amalgamate all of these currencies and then they will use it for a further good cause. So the money's sort of like doubled up, if you like.
So it's a great way to really stretch it out and spread it across different charities then in that way.
Oh, exactly. It's fascinating. The only trouble is I have a small problem that my coin counter, mostly it can separate out the non-UK coins, but some coins are really similar to other coins and it will sort of double it up. So the 1 cent coin for the euro tends to go into the pennies, and you get things like the €1 thinks it's a pound, and because they're very similar, it sort of goes a bit astray, shall we say. But even things like I've had old pound coins that are no longer valid. I take those into the bank and say, "Excuse me, can I have pound coins, please?" And they just exchange them. So that's fantastic. Even old notes as well. To us, it doesn't matter. We will find a way to make that money into usable money.
Fabulous, Silver. Thank you so much. Now, come here to me. I have to love you and leave you in a minute. But before we go, could you tell people where they could find you online, please?
Uh, I could. You missed the engineering joke there, didn't you?
No, I did. I got it. Don't worry.
Yeah, so you shouldn't bait an engineer with a question like that because we will not not always give the expected answer. But anyway, more seriously, you can find me on the Blue Sky, is the main one that I tend to use, and I'm surprisingly enough a Silverfoxwolf over there, so you'll find me pretty much there. Um, I do have a website which I don't update nearly enough, so that's probably another one. Also on FA as well for Affinity, and pretty much that's about it. I don't jump around all these social media sites and try and keep up with which one the latest site is because I get too confused. I've got enough trouble remembering where I'm supposed to be at the best of times. So yeah, Blue Sky is definitely the one to find me on.
Fabulous, Silver. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been so amazing to actually get a chat to you because when we're at Scotiacon or other events, we're just passing ships and we're running around like headless chickens. So it's so fun to actually have like a proper yap, if that makes sense.
Well, I think this is probably the longest conversation we've been able to have. It's always sort of like zoom, yeah, straight past. But no, generally speaking, if you can find a way to sit down at a con, it's nice to do and just enjoy social time when it presents itself.